8 strings a gimmick? I don't know. Let's find out. What's up, everyone? My name is Reese. I'm a musician based out of Michigan, and today I wanted to answer the question whether or not these things are gimmicky or whether they're completely valid as instruments. So why did I decide to kind of impromptu get an 8 string for myself? If you stuck around with the channel at all, you've probably seen me doing some teaching videos or things of this sort with a 6 string Ibanez, and I just kind of randomly got an 8 string and thought that would be cool. The reason being is I'm a huge fan of the kind of progressive metal thing, and Tosin Abasi is very well known for this kind of thumping thing. And I wanted to give that a try, so I just kind of went right ahead and jumped into the extended range guitar thing with very little experience. This is the first 8 string that I've ever played. You know, I didn't try it before I bought it. I just kind of got it and I saw what happened. So I guess we could talk a little bit about tunings for these things before we get into it. I have this one in drop E kind of thing. So we have E, we have B, and then we have standard for the rest. It's like a normal 6 string from here down. You could also do standard, and the only difference would be F sharp up here. Yeah, that's F sharp. But yeah, aside from that, you could do like an open tuning thing. There's this band called Night Verses that does that quite a bit with some of their music, and they come up with some really cool stuff. So, but I like to keep things pretty simple. I'm super used to standard tuning, and that is the tuning that I use to, you know, practice and learn. So this kind of makes sense to me. I'm also used to playing drop D style stuff. So with the E kind of octave relationship that I have here, you know, it's very much like a drop D thing. So, you know, 5th in the bass, octave in the bass, all the drop D, you know, drop D, eat your heart out kind of thing. So I know these kinds of guitars scare a lot of people, and you know, there's some valid reasons for that. I was also kind of in the camp of like, oh, you know, 8 strings, you know, there's more to think about, and that's just not really the case. You know, as long as you are tuning to a, you know, tuning that you're comfortable with, then you're not going to have an issue. I found that this has been a very easy switch coming from 6 string. You know, there's maybe some drawbacks that we'll get into here in a second, but aside from those, this has been completely natural feeling to switch to. So what are some of the drawbacks? So I think the most obvious one is, you know, the width of the neck with this extended range kind of thing we have here is going to make it really hard for thumb over guys. My buddy Jake, who's a bit more into like the classic rock kind of thing, you know, he's used to bending and doing stuff like that and having his thumb over and maybe grabbing some notes up here, but he kind of can't because of the thickness of this neck. So that's definitely something to think about. Another thing that kind of bothers me about these kinds of instruments is you don't really have a lot of pickup options. Most of what I've seen are the Tosin Abasi Fluence, Fishman Fluence pickups, which are cool. I think those sound cool. That's not what these are. These are just Seymour Duncan pickups. And they're not really my thing for the sheer fact that I'm coming from an HSS configuration. So I kind of like having my like Stratty position 2 and 4, which this can get close to, but it's just not quite scratching the itch for me. So that's kind of disappointing that there aren't more options for these things. And part of me making this video is to hopefully get more people to try these things and, you know, kind of remove the, I guess, stigma on them, you know, being exclusively for metal, so we can start getting some more pickup variations. That would be really cool. You know, simple supply and demand. If more people want these in different configurations, brands and companies will start making them. So that would be cool. Another thing that kind of bothers me is the lack of a tremolo or vibrato bridge, you know, floating bridge kind of thing. I feel naked without the ability to, you know, get my vibrato on some of my chords. I guess it's not a huge deal if you're used to fixed bridges, but I am not. I come very much from like a tremolo lead player sort of thing, so not having a tremolo is kind of sad. And it makes me not happy. So I guess the last and probably the goofiest drawback to these things is that if you get one, especially if it is headless, you will be made fun of. People will talk shit. They will say things like, "What, did you graduate the first 6 strings, so you need 2 more?" They will say stuff like that. And, you know, it's all in good fun. You know, it's important to have thick skin. You know, we don't get these things for those kinds of shallow reasons like that. We get them because they offer a completely new playing field for us, and I guess we can get into some of the advantages to having 8 strings. And I guess to begin with, most obviously, we have the addition of 2 strings that are lower than the rest, so we have much lower register. And if you tune the way that I do, this is a bass, you know, same octave E as a bass. So that's really cool. And I think what that does is it allows for a fuller sound in some of your compositions. So if you have a chord kind of like, you know, say C major 7 add 9 kind of thing, you just drop it down. If you tune the same, and you get a way fuller sound. Which I'm a huge fan of. Another advantage that I think that these have is the ability to kind of solo a composition. So if you're like a solo guitarist and you're not playing with the drummer or not playing with the bassist or anybody, you can kind of cover the entire range with these instruments, which I think is really sweet. You know, you have a bass essentially on your guitar, and you should be using it in that way because you have the ability to. I guess another thing that I really like about 8 strings is their kind of percussive capabilities. You know, in the intro you heard me playing this kind of thing. You know, the Tosinabasi thumpy thing sounds really cool in a lower register. And I guess lastly, which is kind of the sole reason that I got this, is these things sound really unique when they're not used for metal. You know, the whole chugga chugga thing that you see a lot of these things do. When I was getting this, I kind of wanted to subvert that expectation and do other stuff with it, which I think is important because I think these instruments are really good for, you know, everything that a regular guitar does. It's just you have lower registers. So I kind of wanted to help destroy the stigma that these things are only really good for the chugga chugga kind of thing. And I guess as I demonstrated earlier, you know, it's really cool for percussive, you know, pretty chord kind of stuff. They can do all that stuff, and they sound really unique, you know, because we're covering such a wide harmonic range. And the last one, you know, maybe it's a little personal, but I saw this as a really cool opportunity for me to stand out with my parts. Everything we talked about already, you know, having this lower register, and, you know, the fact that I am not necessarily using this completely for the chugga chugga metal thing, I think is kind of what gives it an edge on a regular 6-string guitar, for all the reasons that I went into already. So yeah, I guess to wrap up, no, I don't think they're gimmicky. I think they're completely valid as instruments, and, you know, I would honestly like it if more people would try them. You know, go to your local shop. If they're carrying these, make sure you pick one up and try it out. You know, it'll take a few minutes to get used to, you know, where all the notes are at on these two low strings, but like once you get past that point, it's not a huge deal at all. You know, you'll find yourself doing things that you wouldn't normally do on a 6-string, and that's cool. You know, that is cool. We want to be experimenting. We want to be, you know, trying new stuff and having fun. That's what's most important about this, you know, hobby or profession that we all love. Yeah, I mean, it's completely changed my approach when it comes to writing parts and, you know, playing. So I think for that reason, I'm going to make the switch semi-permanently and continue to play this, you know, and stick with it for a while until I can see what I can come up with, you know. So yeah, I hope that answers the initial question of this video. If you're on the fence and you're thinking about getting one, dude, just do it. They're awesome. Plus, if you do it and you do something a little bit different, it's kind of similar to what I'm trying to do, then, you know, eventually we will have more pickup options. We will have, you know, more bridge options. We will have, you know, maybe we'll have less multi-scale stuff going on, you know, like we'll have options for 8 strings. So for that reason, I want to see people trying them, because when I picked up this thing, it like I said, it really did revolutionize the way that I think about a guitar, and I want everyone to experience that. And you know, if it's not for you, then it's not for you, and that's totally okay. I don't think having 2 less strings makes you any less of a guitar player. You know, having 6 is hard enough to play. Okay, so if 8's too much for you, it's not a big deal, man. Just stick with your 6 strings. Nobody's gonna shame you. But yeah, I guess with all that said, I've been Reese. If you guys have anything to say, or you want to, you know, give your opinion on whether or not you switched or why you will or won't, yeah, just leave it in the comments. Make sure to like this video and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys soon in the future. Peace.